People think Manhattan is still dead, but no, even during the dead times in Manhattan, if you walked outside and walked around compared to, say, Cleveland, Ohio, it would seem like it was on fire, like a lot of activity. But the place is just so much more active than other places.
If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall DeCleared. Let's go, baby. All right, welcome back, agents. We're building cash flow together. Let's get this show going. Happy to have Harry DiOrio on the show today. He's a founder of the Harry DiOrio team, and he's an accomplished real estate professional. He's been in the business since 2003. He sold properties in every category and price range in the New York, and now he's in the Florida market as well. So he's leading a group of talented agents in New York, and I think he says he's joined a team down in Florida as well. So he's licensed in multiple states. On the show today, we're going to discuss the usual. We talk about the market. He has a unique insight in the Florida and the New York markets. So we talk about what he's seeing there. We talk about what he's doing to win some deals. And we talk about his prior career, which was award-winning photojournalist, which is very cool just in its own right, and how that assisted him when he was early stage, his real estate brokerage career, to actually win listings. He was new to the New York market and new to real estate. So it helped him get deals very quickly because he had an additional skill set. So very interesting individual, multifaceted. He's got a diverse set of interests, which is always great to talk to somebody like him. He loves sailing. He's a pilot. He likes to ski, cook, and so many things. So join us as we delve into Harry's unique set of experiences and his wealth of insights. And let's get this show going. Let's go. All right, Harry, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. I know you are a top producer. You're in the New York and Florida markets, and it seems like you are killing it. So really grateful for you jumping on the show with us. Let's dive right in. I want to get some backstory on how you got into real estate in the first place. You and I were just talking off air. We were talking about how you were in media and you were in the print and photography side. So can you give me the backstory there? Transition that, how you got into real estate from there.
Sure. Well, thanks, Randall, for having me on the show. So basically, I was in the newspaper business and as a photojournalist and a photo editor, director of photography, and then assistant managing editor at a newspaper. And the newspaper paid for me to get my MBA, which was very generous of them. Early on, I bought my first house. I bought a 2-family house because I wanted the income from the other apartment to offset the mortgage. And then I decided to buy another one, and I moved to the new one and then rented out the former house. And it was great. I had cash flow and I had depreciation, and it was great. And what happened was I had no plan of leaving the media business, but I got back together with an old girlfriend who's now my wife, and she was living in New York City, and I was in Syracuse. I had a great job and great situation, but she worked in the financial business, and there weren't really jobs for her in Syracuse, not ones that the kind of pay that money that she was making. So I decided I would move to New York, and I started to look for jobs in the media world. And I got some great offers, honestly. They were great jobs, but they didn't pay very much. So as part of this process, I decided I need to sell my houses to move to New York. And so I listed them with this agent, Janet Wenzel, who really was a great agent. In the process of selling the homes, I started thinking about getting my real estate license. But before I did that, in the way I ended up doing the real estate thing was that I basically made what I called a selfish list, which is all the stuff I like: cars, boats, airplanes, food, real estate, a variety of other things. And I made this list. And then back in the day, the internet was what it is now. I went through the New York Times job section every Sunday, and I basically circled jobs that I thought would be interesting and which might pay more than being a photo editor. And so as I went through that process, real estate sounds exciting. And also in residential real estate, you control your own schedule, which means you work 24/7. But anyway, you control your own schedule. So I thought, oh, this is great. I'll still be able to shoot pictures and still have my photo thing going. So basically, I got my real estate license before I moved to New York. And then I moved to New York. And Friday, I was the assistant managing editor at a newspaper. And then on Monday, I was a real estate broker in Manhattan. And just took off from there. I did a lot of freelance work. And then what happened was the more apartments I sold, the fewer pictures I shot, just because it made more sense to sell apartments than to do assignments for magazines and newspapers, which basically paid the same amount of money as when I was in college. I had a great gig. I was the USGA's photographer for the US Open Tennis through Getty Images. I had great success in photography, and I love photography, but thank God I got out of the business, because who knew it was like a sinking ship, the whole newspaper media world, from what they pay photographers.
When was it? Because photography has always been something that I've enjoyed. And then obviously with the iPhone and everybody having a camera and all that. So like, when did you get out?
2003. So it's pre-iPhone. And certainly the iPhone and the ease of taking pictures really lowered the bar for photography and photojournalism. And it changed the way things are done at publications. A lot of reporters shoot their own pictures, and at any rate, it's just the business, also the loss of circulation, and followed by the layoffs and the loss of advertising and all that stuff, was just a downward spiral. So I was lucky to make the decision I made, although it wasn't because I disliked the business I was in. It's just that the numbers didn't work for Manhattan. I decided to make the switch. So the photography thing helped me out a lot initially, because back then there wasn't HDR photography where you can shoot pictures without lighting things and you can put a whole bunch of crappy pictures together and make a good one out of it, that people use now for real estate photography. So because I was able to shoot high quality images for my listings, it made a big difference, because when you first start out, you're likely not going to get the trophy listings unless you really know people who want to sell trophy listings and they trust you to do it, even though you haven't done anything before. You usually end up with smaller, more humble properties. Those brokers didn't have the budget to hire photographers to shoot these things. Yeah, I was able to differentiate myself with the photography when I first got into the business. And now you can hire a photographer to shoot interiors and do all of the stuff that takes hours before they come in and they bang off these shots, and it's very inexpensive on a relative basis compared to 2003. So
yeah, we're getting some done today. It's like $200. And in one of our listings, they're in and out in an hour or two with drone shots. It's like the whole deal.
It's a different world. Even after I stopped shooting professionally for wire services, magazines, and newspapers, and freelancing basically, or after I stopped doing professional, I should say, I was still shooting my interiors just because I liked doing it. And I was working with a real estate coach, and she was telling me, every time you shoot pictures, you're losing money.
You're not prospecting.
Okay.
Yeah, don't have any joy. Just go prospect.
Yeah. And also, yeah, exactly. But I continued doing it for a while, and then finally I just stopped. So, I still shoot pictures, right? I have the skill.
What's your favorite camera that you use?
I have a Nikon equipment. I have everything from a 14 millimeter to a 400 2.8, but my photo device of choice now is the iPhone. In this case, it has a lens cover, keeps it nice and clean. It's a very important part of getting good iPhone photos.
Yeah.
Having a clean lens. The new iPhones is so incredible.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk real estate. So you got into real estate, and this was around 2003. Very curious, new to the market, new to real estate in general. So what were some of the things that you did that were winning you business at an early stage in your career? Initially,
I worked for a small firm that allowed us to put open listings on the website. I called up these for sale by owners and said, hey, would you mind if I put it on the website, and would you pay me a commission if I find a buyer? And most of them said yes. So the first day I was in the business, I was reading the employee manual And I went over to the sales manager and I said, yeah, I was reading the employee manual and I saw that if I could get a for sale by owner to let me do an open house, that you would put an ad in the New York Times. She goes, why are you reading the employee manual? I said, I don't know, it's my first day here, my first day in the business. And she took this big stack of papers. So we used to get them by fax, slapped them on the desk. And she said, these are open listings, start calling them. And I said, what am I going to say? You tell them you want their listing. If they won't give you the listing, if they would let you put it on the website, they would pay you a commission. Well, most of them didn't want to give me the listing, or really none of them at that time. I was able to go in there and shoot really high quality photos that looked like real work, professional photos. That was huge for me. So I figured, well, I'll start with it was an open listing for 7.3 million. Or I was like, I called them up with the bears for this like killer building in New York. And they said, oh yeah, come over. So I figured, oh, what the hell? I went over there and shot some pictures. And back then I set up all these different appointments and I went and shot pictures and got the information. And by the end of the week, I had like a website that looked like one of the top agents. I had a $7 million listing that we have now, these aggregators. And so nonetheless, the guy who owned the company did these training sessions and he really helped me to become a salesman, because a lot of what we do is selling, right? So there's marketing, there's all kinds of stuff that's involved in the real estate world. But certainly he was a great trainer on selling things in general. And he really taught me a lot. And so when I had my first phone call from one of my open listings, he had done this, I was in the business a week, okay, and I got my first phone call off of one of my listings, my open listings.
I'm in business now.
Yeah, and basically he had said to me during this training session, if you get an out-of-town client, you run them around until they drop. Because as soon as you stop, they're going to be running around with someone else. So these people called me on this open listing. I said, do you want me to set up a tour for you when you're going to be in town? They said, yes. I said, how long are you going to be here? They said, oh, we're going to be there Saturday and Sunday. I said, oh, no problem. So all day Saturday, all day Sunday, I showed them properties. And then at the end of the day on Sunday, they put in an offer on this one place they liked. They got it and had my first deal 2 weeks into the business, which is...
Yeah, that's solid.
And then a couple of weeks later, I got another deal and I was off and running. And then after I had done a few deals, I had contacted this woman who was a sales manager at Douglas Elliman. I was calling her because she had been an agent before. And she said, oh, I'm a sales manager now. This other person has the listing. And I said, okay, great. She goes, well, but since you called me, she said, I think looking at your bio, I think you'd be a great agent. You want to come in and talk to me. And she was at this firm in New York City called Douglas Elliman, big firm. And so I ended up moving over to Douglas Elliman. And it was helpful to have the brand behind me to get listings at that point, because I didn't have my own brand yet. Now I have my own brand. It really doesn't matter which firm I'm at.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'm kind of curious. So the transition, I mean, that was early days. So now, obviously, the market is completely different. Your experience level is through the roof now. You put in your 10,000 hours, I'm sure, since 2003. Yeah, like what does your team look like now? And I know you're in Florida and in New York. And so I wanted to talk to you about that. Like, how do you manage the workflow in two different markets? And just a string of questions about that in general. I want to save some time so we get into talking investments. But what does your team look like now? And like, how do you manage those two markets?
Yeah, so my primary business is in New York, and Florida is my new business, so to speak. So I'm starting out again down here, because it's not like some people whose business is very transportable. Real estate's really a local business, right? So not that your skills are transportable, but your client base is often not, right? Although there's a lot of interconnections and stuff between people.
I was kind of wondering if your client base in New York is looking for a retirement home or that sort of like second home. I was like, it seems like
it's definitely a big factor. A lot of people from New York are moving to Florida. But anyway, my primary business is in New York, where I have a team. There's 4 of us and a full-time assistant. And so basically, I have to do the majority of business, and I give leads to these other agents. And when I get listings, which I have quite a few listings. I assign one agent to each listing, and they get a percentage of the commission. And that way, if I'm in Florida or anywhere else, because if I'm traveling, it gives me an opportunity to have a regular life. I have coverage, right? So between the four of us, we are able to cover all these listings. And so, whereas in Florida, I'm actually on a team. So I have a friend who represented us when we bought our house down here, and he was from New York. He worked for Brown Harris Stevens in New York City. And so at any rate, when we were thinking about buying a place in Florida, I gave him a buzz. He's at Compass, where I'm also at Compass now, and a great firm, by the way. And basically, I contacted him, and he helped us with our purchase here. His name's Peter Arner. And so basically, when it came time to expand my business to Florida, I joined his team. Basically, I need support here in Florida too. And also because things are done differently in Florida and there is an education process involved. I got my license, and then I didn't really expand my business to Florida because I was worried that people in New York would think, oh, he's moved to Florida, I'm not going to list my place. And then basically I was talking to some other agents about this whole thing, and they said, dude, if you want to expand your business to Florida, you can't be a secret agent. You have to tell people. And so I made an announcement video, which is really, really nice. I have this guy in Florida does all my pictures, my listings and videos and whatnot. And he did his announcement video for me, and it was great. And I sent it out to everyone, and the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. So after I made my announcement, I got a listing like a month later, and then I got another listing, and I sold the first one. The second one's in contract now, and I have a buyer. One of my cousin wants to buy a place. It turns out everyone in New York is looking to buy a place in Florida, but a lot of people. And so it worked out very well. Yeah, so we'll see how that all pans out in the long run. Florida's a great market. It's growing like mad. There was the feeding frenzy of the pandemic, which you might think it was a good market, but what it was a crazy market where if you were a seller, it was a good market. Unless you then, after you sold, you wanted to buy something.
Exactly.
As a buyer, it wasn't a good market. It wasn't a good market because really markets are transactions. So when people come together and they make a deal, you have a market. You can have a high price at a bad market and a low price in a good market. It's just the question is, are transactions occurring? And the fact was that in Florida, the transactions were hard to come by because there was nothing to sell. Whereas in New York City, we had a great market. Everyone thinks, the market in New York was crap. It was horrible. There was so much inventory and prices were down. And I'm like, we had deals, right? And a market is deals. It's not the price.
I'm curious about that then in New York. So why do you think that it stayed active? Just the sheer volume?
We had inventory and the prices were attractive. There were deals to be made. People were negotiable until they weren't when the market really heated up in 2021. And then it became less negotiable. But still, the price was still below peak. We're still selling below peak. I mean, the peak of the New York market was like 2015. And quite honestly, if you bought something in 2015 and you're selling it today in New York City, there's a good possibility you're actually going to sell it for less than you paid for it.
Really, it's still that high?
Well, the pandemic hit New York harder than most other places. And also what happened originally was the tax bill that eliminated the SALT deduction, which really hurt our market. So people started moving because of the tax bill a long time ago before the pandemic. And then the pandemic came along and really accelerated it. So it's like the New York market in 2019, early 2020 was just recovering from this tax bill thing. People were finally, after things like when the interest rates went up recently, now people are like, the interest rates are what they are. They're coming back into the market. But we were just recovering in 2019. And then the quarter of 2020 was great. And then boom, the pandemic came and people ran like out of the city. I did too. I went out to my house on Shelter Island, which is on Eastern Long Island. We just bailed. I was like, we better get our car out of the garage before they close it down. You can't get our car out, and there's no trains. There's no, I thought it was like people were freaking out. And I have to admit, I was among them. Got in my car and loaded it up with stuff. We went to my wife's office. We looted all of her computer stuff. The guy at the front desk was like, you can't take that. She goes, oh, yes, I can. I'm taking it right now. Just walked out the door with it all, jammed it in the car. And off we went to Shelter Island, where we then thought, oh, well, spend a month out here. And when this blows over, we'll come back in. Next thing you know, it's like a year later. Crazy. So, but that hurt New York more so. If you had listings in New Jersey, close to New York, or in Westchester, or parts of Long Island, some people had listings that have been on the market for a year. And then boom, all of a sudden they were selling like this.
I was going to say, yeah, my sister-in-law is up there and she moved out of Brooklyn and they bought a house in Jersey and in West Orange. And it was insane. She was shopping and shopping and shopping. And this had to be COVID right after late 22, mid 22, something like that, mid 21. I can't remember. But yeah, everything out there was going over list, multiple offers, cash was winning the day. Everyone was trying to get out of New York. So that's what she experienced. And that's the stories that I've heard from her.
As a result, the New York market prices went way down at first. Once the market reopened, buyers, not immediately, but they started coming back. And people from Florida who bought apartments in New York because they were like, oh, God, you're giving them away. We'll take it. Compared to Florida, where it was hard to make a deal other than just giving them their ask or more. In New York, it was a great opportunity for buyers. If you were buying on an investment basis, you were buying at a low number. And all of a sudden, when everyone started coming back, the rental market went through the roof. When people first moved to New York, or anywhere really, but in New York, a lot of times, because the transaction time is quite lengthy in Manhattan compared to anywhere else. And so basically most people rent when they first come back, when they first move to New York. And when all these people started coming back to New York, they rented. So the rental market went through the roof. And if you bought a property as an investment back in beginning of 2021, and you just really got lucky, because who knew the rental market is still out of control in New York, because people are coming back to Manhattan. Some people think Manhattan is still dead, but no, even during the dead times in Manhattan, if you walked outside and walked around, compared to, say, Cleveland, Ohio, it would seem like it was on fire, like a lot of activity. But the place is just so much more active than other places. And now it's back.
Yeah. Let's talk investments then, because that's kind of a transition, people buying the apartments. I know a buddy of mine is in New York and he was looking at buying his own place when he was up there. But in general, like, I want to take it back because it sounds like you bought early. You bought some things in Syracuse. Is that correct?
Yeah. My first purchase was 1989, 10.75% interest rate with very little money down. That thing rented positive. The cap rate up in Syracuse is like 8%. In Manhattan is like 3%. So you can buy a house in Syracuse or a market like Syracuse with a lot less down and still rent positive. New York has a built-in expectation of higher prices in the future. A lot of people buy investment properties imagining that they'll sell them for significantly more in the future, because the track record in Manhattan and in New York City in general is pretty much, other than the markets go like this, but if you just smooth out that line, if go back to 1600s, it looks like nothing but up, but reality is it gets up and down.
Buying for appreciation there more so than the cash flow.
And also because people want to be in New York and they look at it as a safe investment. Like they feel like there's less volatility and there's always a solid rental base.
Yeah, that's the 3% reflected in that 3% cap rate, for sure.
Yeah, because most people wouldn't take that in the markets. Although now, with the price run up in Florida, you're seeing cap rates. I live in St. Petersburg, and you're seeing cap rates in this area like 4% and stuff, and people are buying them. So because prices went up so much here.
Prices and rents down there. I've looked at a lot of offerings over there, and it's just like the rents have skyrocketed.
The rents have skyrocketed. The numbers aren't as favorable as they were, say, if you'd bought something in 2019 even. The price of a house since 2019 in Florida it's not quite, maybe it hasn't doubled, but it's gone up a lot more than, in my opinion, more than rents have.
Do you have any investments, like passive investments that produce consistent cash flow over time?
Not only financial investments. My wife and I are exploring the Florida market for rental properties, both single families and multifamilies with a relatively 4 or less units.
What markets are you looking at?
We're looking basically in the St. Petersburg area, so it would be fairly close to our house here, so it'd be easy to manage. And basically, we've looked at a bunch of things, and when prices have gone up a lot, you always worry buying at the top. Or as long as I've been in real estate, I worry about that too, right? So they're getting snapped up. So the market doesn't feel like, in general, because some things just sitting around because they're overpriced, but the market feels like, okay, well, prices are up 50%, but rents are up significantly too. And the feeling is rents are going to continue to go up. And so the cap rate will come back to where it becomes a better investment if over time, right? So
I was looking at a number of reports, and it seems like one of the biggest things for 2023 is that affordability is an issue, right? And so rents have gone up and it's outpacing the income growth. And so the question in my mind is, how long does that actually last? How long can that happen? And so I was just reading another report this morning, and it was like it's the third month in a row of rent declines in some markets because they've just gone out of control. So I'm curious what you're seeing down there. Do you feel as though in St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Tampa, that whole area, do you feel like that's an issue? Because I know one market, Jacksonville, is definitely on the affordable side, but compared to like a Tampa or St. Petersburg, like how does that look? We're proud to be sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other Texas secondary markets. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com.
Affordability is a huge issue here. It's a big factor. I mean, because as you say, incomes went up a little bit, but not much, and rents have gone up a lot. So certainly, I understand that not everybody can buy something, right? But it certainly makes people feel like, God, I wish I'd bought something. Because when you buy a place, you're locking in. When you rent, you're at the whim of the market every year. I see more negotiability in prices, and I see some rental units, these houses that are for sale and for rent. I mean, in the area that I've seen that they've been for rent for quite a while. So you see the market relaxing a little bit, but not so much on price yet. Prices to purchase have still gone up in St. Petersburg and the Tampa Bay area. So it's not like they've gone down. So I don't think rental prices in the area have not gone down yet here. And then I got to be honest, in New York, rental prices definitely have not gone down there either. So, and those are the two markets I follow that I'm expert in, which Tampa Bay and New York. And I would have to say, I don't see any sign of rent relief in either of those places.
How's the population trend in Tampa area? Because if that's increasing, if it's increasing and your home prices are increasing, the only alternative is to rent if you can't buy. And so obviously that's going to put upward pressure on the limited number of units.
Absolutely. And the interest rates have really forced people into continuing to rent. And it's a factor. Affordability has been squeezed both in rent and in purchasing. And houses in Florida, I used to think, I'll sell my place on Long Island. I'll move to Florida and put money in the bank. Forget about that. That's not happening now. Unless I have a waterfront place in the Hamptons or something. If you have like middle of Long Island house and you're going to sell it and move to Florida, I wouldn't expect to be pocketing piles of money.
You think it's like an even trade almost?
For a house, yeah. In New York, of course, it's a different game because New York prices, as relaxed as they are compared to the peak, which was in 2015, it's still way higher than other markets. So if you sell your place in New York and you move to Florida, you'll certainly have some buying power.
Let's talk a little bit more about what you guys are looking for, because I'm curious, like on the investment side. And you're looking for 1 to 4 units. This is basically what you're looking at.
We have some cash, and what we would do is thinking of buying a few single family homes or a couple of multifamilies. We're just a numbers game in the investment world, purchase price, taxes, insurance. And so the thing about a single family home, though, is you don't have to worry about neighborly strife. The two neighbors that don't get along, the dog is barking, the kids are screaming, the person next door is irritated. In a single family home, you don't have that interaction of people within your property. Our feeling is that those homes are stickier in terms of tenants moving in and then staying for longer. They develop a sense of home, a feeling that it's their home and stuff, and they're likely to stay in the rental longer. And certainly turnover costs money, right? It's free. You got painting, you got touch-ups, you got vacancy. Having a stable tenant that stays for a while is critical. A lot of people in Florida are, depending on the community where you live, buy things for short-term rentals, doing Airbnbs and that kind of stuff. And there is a huge market for that down here. In St. Petersburg and lots of the area around the Tampa Bay, communities don't allow short-term rentals, but there's some that do. Managing one of those short-term rentals is like a full-time job, right? It becomes less passive.
I've talked to a number of people that do that. And then if you do hire somebody, it's usually about 30% of the rents go to the management company, but they take care of it. I mean, that's for like a white glove service.
Yeah, you got to get cleaning. Every time someone leaves, you're cleaning of towels, all this stuff. But nonetheless, the numbers look good.
For sure. Yeah. So what's the goal, you and the wife? What are you guys talking about? Why buy anything and trying to get some capital to work?
To have passive income, so that it's income that, one, if with depreciation, you can zero out your income. Everyone always talks, Donald Trump doesn't pay any taxes, whatever. Obviously, we're not in that category. But the reason is depreciation. You have these assets, and over time, you're depreciating them. And then you have this income that comes from those assets. And if the depreciation hits that income number, there's zero taxes to be paid on that income. So that's attractive to us for sure. We would initially buy with cash. And then depending on how those numbers are working out, hit the place with a little financing so that then we would take that money and buy something else. So
you're looking at the 1 to 4 and you're going to pay cash, like in San Antonio, just for example, right? And investing in general, like there's a 1% rule when you're talking about the rents to cover debt. But if you're not putting debt on it, that changes the dynamic a little bit. And you're really buying on that cap rate because that is really what you're buying, right? And so for anybody listening, cap rate is the capitalization rate, essentially what your return is on the capital you invest in a deal. So if the cap rate is 5%, you buy a 5% property, you're going to get 5% return. That's like what you're buying, essentially. What type of return are you looking for on a cash deal? Or what are you seeing, I guess? What's available?
Most of the places that we're seeing are coming in between 4.5 and 5.5. Some of them are even lower. We're not interested in those places. And everyone is saying, you can increase your return with just jacking up the rents. That's every single property says that in Florida. But the reality is that you get a pro forma rent roll from people, and it seems very optimistic to me compared to the current rent roll, which is, in my opinion, more accurate. Because would say to the person, I say to them, well, why haven't you jacked up the rents?
It's very like standard. I'm looking at a lot of multifamily, like 50 to 200 unit properties, and it's kind of the same argument. There's a little bit more leverage there. You have some other things that you can pull on, but it is the property's at 60%, and then the pro forma number, 60% occupied. Pro forma numbers are 95% occupied with rents $400 higher than they currently are and no CapEx. What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
One of the pressures in the Florida area is definitely insurance. It's something that comes as a surprise to people from out of town, just how much insurance is going to be as compared to most other places in the country that don't have the hurricane risk. And it's something that's one of your expenses, so it pushes down your cap. And then property taxes in Florida are higher than most people imagine they're going to be. And so if you have someone who's selling a place that they bought quite a while ago and it hasn't been properly reassessed and all that, the amount they're paying in taxes is a lot lower than what you're going to pay. So you really have to do an analysis on, one, what the taxes are going to be at the price that you're paying, because that's what they're going to turn into the minute you close. And then the other one is, how much is insurance going to be?
Is Florida a disclosure state on the sale price?
Yeah, I mean,
Texas is a non-disclosure state. The only way that the county finds out about it, if it was on MLS, I'm pretty sure they have access to that data, but their assessment is not based on a disclosed sale price.
Oh, it definitely is in Florida. And
are you like assessing your tax rate at 90% of purchase price, 85, 100%? Like, what does that look like?
Basically in Pinellas County, where St. Petersburg is, you're basically looking at 1.8% of the property value in taxes per year.
Yeah. But the valuation, how is that number found out? That's based on the sale price?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no percentage.
There's no crazy calculation. Like in New York, good luck trying to figure out what the taxes are going to be. They have a crazy formula. And one nice thing about New York, too, though, let's say you buy a condo in New York City and the person who bought it, who you're buying it from, paid $500,000 quite a few years ago. And now you're paying $1 million, let's say, just for toss out a number. And then you close, your taxes don't change on that condo. So that's a nice thing about New York, is that you can see what the taxes are, and that's what the taxes are going to be for a condo. Not to say that they're going to stay that way forever, because taxes only go in one direction, and we know what that is, up, right? So that's one of the nicer things about New York. And actual New York City taxes are actually quite low. People always talk about, oh, New York's got high taxes. Well, in New York City, the tax rate, the value of the investment is actually pretty low compared to other Florida. But if you went to Westchester, where tax rate is quite high, or some other parts of New York State, then you'd find that taxes are actually higher on value basis. So
I want to get to something before we jump off the phone. Basically, getting back to, again, the goals. Like, I want to flesh something out with you just out of curiosity. I guess, why 1 to 4? Just for management issues, right? Or have you guys looked at larger apartments that maybe you go in?
We have. There's an 8-unit building. A friend of mine who we sail with is a commercial broker. He just put on the market, and it looks very interesting. Put some thought into it. So it's not like it is. A lot has to do with, if we want to pay cash, how much cash do you have? And then how much cash do you have? How many units could you buy with that cash if you were going to finance and still have a positive rate of return? Because we don't want to do this and have no return. Put 60% financing on something and not make any money.
And have the debt over your head. Yeah.
Right. So what's the point of it? We're looking now really toward just having cash flow. I'm not down on bigger properties, but just focused on what we can afford based on the money that we have.
The question is, again, is the goal to have the cash flow? So that's what it sounds like. You want to start offsetting some of your active income with some passive income.
Right. And then we'll hit the properties with some financing. Let's say that you're getting a rate of return and you have your depreciation, right? And it's eating up most of the return, but not all of it. Well, I look at that, the rest of it, as something that I would put financing on to zero it out so that there's no tax liability from the income from that property. And then take that money, whatever that number is, and add it to the money that we have to buy the next place. But certainly the idea is cash flow. I mean, why else do people buy investment properties? Otherwise, we just put the money in the bank, because now you can get a 4% rate of return in a bank these days.
Risk-free rate. I guess the reason, again, I know a number of people who are high income earners and they don't want any more income. They just want everything to be cash flow. couple I know, they bought a 136 unit deal. They were the main equity in the deal with another sponsor who was actually running it. And their instructions were, do not send us checks, reinvest it in the property. So their goal was not to get cash flow. They wanted the depreciation from that asset to offset their active income. And they didn't want any more passive income coming in. They were like, instead of us putting more money in the deal, renovate the units with the cash flow that the property's producing over time. And we'll turn everything over, and then we'll have this thing for a while. 1031, and that was their goal. So again, that's kind of the question. There are a number of different properties or types of things that you can invest in if you want completely hands off. And so when I say larger property, I was kind of alluding to maybe like a syndication or a fund. And if you invested your dollars into like a syndication where you're going to get the big depreciation, year one depreciation plus the ongoing that happens over time through a K1. But have you guys looked at that? Because that's truly hands off.
Yeah, we haven't really focused on that, honestly. It's something we could explore for sure, but hasn't been our focus.
Do you know what a cost segregation is?
No.
I would say start exploring it. So I had a guy on, his name is Weiss. First name's failing me right now, but he's the cost seg king if you look him up on LinkedIn. Basically what a cost segregation is, they take all the fixtures in a property. It's an engineering analysis. They break down the lifespan of certain things into year one, into 5 year, into the regular depreciation, 15 years, something like that. And so you can, as a real estate professional, take 100% of, I think it's 80% now, bonus depreciation in year one for certain items. And so your depreciation in year one goes up significantly when you acquire and put something into service. And so definitely, if you're looking at 4 units, you can do it on a single family, but it costs money to do these things. And so you'd have to actually talk to a guy like the cost seg king. So you just talk to him and say, look, this is the type of property I'm looking at. Doesn't make sense to do a cost seg on this property. On a 4 unit, anything like that size, I imagine it'd be well worth the money to do that so you can accelerate the depreciation up into year one. And so more of the dollars that you're investing in that year are going to be depreciated, and you're going to get bigger write-off in that year. And if you don't use it all, then it carries over with you. It stays with you into the following year, subsequent years. So again, the reason I'm asking you about the goals is kind of like a real life question answer sort of deal, just that I have with a lot of people. It's like, do you want complete and maybe a syndication where they're running investment program on a 100, 200, 500 unit? I mean, these things, whatever it is, it doesn't even have to be multifamily. It could be storage facilities. It could be whatever. They are running the project. You invest 50, 100,000, whatever with that sort of deal. And then you get the depreciation the same as you would if you bought a single family. They're going to do a cost seg on that deal. And then they send you here's your depreciation. Your cash flow should be 5 to 10% annual cash flow. Boom. And then you're going to get a 14% return total over the 5-year hold. So I just went through a lot of stuff there. But the idea of if you like the real estate and you want to run it, and you get a kick out of having the single family and you guys want to be able to touch it, feel it, and all of that in your local market, that's a completely personal strategy that you are making for yourself. But those other investments, if you want to diversify and have maybe 4 or 5 different sponsors that you work with, maybe 4 or 5 different asset classes, you can put $50,000 to $100,000 with a bunch of different people, different markets, and that sort of thing. Get the cash flow, get the depreciation, and you're really hands off. You're looking at spreadsheets and reports and that sort of thing. So anyway, I just didn't know if you had looked into that as an option or if you were familiar with those.
I have friends who, put people together and buy hundreds of units, complexes with 200-300 property apartments in it. And with rising rents and all that stuff, it's turned out well for them. So, but I haven't been thinking about that really. And maybe I should, because it's really hands off. Whereas if you have a single family and all of a sudden the sink is leaking, your phone will ring. I've been through this before. Some people run over and fix things themselves. And there was a time when I was in Syracuse that I would do that. But I'm not looking to do that now. But I have a team I have people that because of my business down here. I know plumbers, electricians, whatever. I have all the basic things that I would pay people to do. And I have some fairly responsive people in my toolbox, which is important.
It definitely makes it easier for you being in the business to buy those single families and to buy those fourplexes and that sort of thing. I would think, because again, I've done that. That's like my background. But again, it always comes back to me. I'm like, okay, what's the goal? What are you guys trying to do? And then honing in on that. And then you could obviously make your investment decisions based around that.
And part of it is positioning ourselves to just have cash flow in retirement. I'm not ready to retire right now or something, but if I accumulate a number of properties that produces cash flow, then although I will say this, I do have a pension from the newspaper, but it's measly. It's a pension nonetheless, and I'm not going to turn my nose up at it. But as a real estate broker, we're not like police officers or teachers. We don't have a pension. No one's going to give me any money if I stop working. I'll be living off of my 401k and my IRA and all these assets I've accumulated over time.
It's literally in here as how are you set up for retirement was one of my next questions here.
We're in good shape for retirement. We have good financial assets, but with financial assets, when you hit a certain point with your IRA, when you have to take deductions, you have to take money out of it, right? So, we'll have that money, we'll have Social Security, whatever. I'll have my pension from the newspaper. My wife has a little bit of a pension from her work, but the bottom line is that it would be nice to have separate cash flow that supports our lifestyle. As we talked about earlier, I'm a sailor, I'm a sailboat racer predominantly. And I think if you've ever heard about sailboat racing, it's not an inexpensive idea. Who knows how long I'll be racing for when I'll switch to cruising or whatever. But just to maintain our lifestyle while no longer working. If you have a high income and then you stop working, I have a lot of friends who are like, oh, I'm going to retire. And then 2 years later, they're back because as a broker, quite honestly, you could work forever. Not that you want to, but it's hard to say no to a juicy listing. It really is. It's one of the nice things about being a real estate broker is that I don't want to say you can't get fired, but you're an independent contractor. And I'm a broker, so I wanted to go out on my own, hang my own shingle. I could. I don't have a job, so to speak, where I have to be somewhere and that kind of thing. So you can continue to work. You could cut back if you wanted to. I don't want to cut back, really. I just want to sell. It's just my nature.
Sell, baby, sell. ABC.
But you got to figure, you get to a certain age, you may not want to continue doing that. Well, I will say I sold this place in Florida recently, and the buyer's agent, I was representing the seller, and the buyer's agent we were doing the inspection, and he said, oh, I ate some bad sushi. My mother's going to come, and she's going to be there for the inspection. Okay, fine. He said, you'll enjoy meeting her. I think he said it was 85 years old or something. I said, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. And she was like a whippersnapper. I mean, she was so full of energy. She's like, she still loves selling properties. She's licensed in a bunch of places. She's licensed in Dubai. I'm like, that's crazy. He said, keeps her energetic and alive, keep selling, and she loves it. So you can keep doing this until whenever, but it'd be nice to be able to relax at some point. And that's where the passive income comes in, honestly, that if you have a bunch of keys. My intention when I was in Syracuse was I was going to buy more and more multifamily property. And I decided to move to New York. So
do you guys have a goal on either I want X number of dollars coming in from these investments on a monthly basis, or it's really just we're just doing this to put capital to work, so it's not just sitting in the bank?
6 months ago, if you had cash, it's worthless. I mean, I don't say worthless. You couldn't make any money with cash because you couldn't just put it in the bank and get a return. You'd get 0.5% or whatever it was. But all of a sudden now, you're seeing money markets at 4.5% and stuff that, mind you, you pay tax on that money, right? So you can't disappear with depreciation. The money that you pocket will be less if you're in the bank at 4.5% than if you have a 4.5% cap on a real estate investment.
Tax benefit, you get the long-term appreciation, all the reasons to own it.
Get tired of that too, you can always just sell the properties. It's just a long-term goal of having income, that's all.
Again, I have the benefit of talking to a lot of different people in different stages of their careers. I talked to a 21-year-old guy the other day, killing it. He's doing really well. And so his investment horizon is completely different than yours, right? You have been successful. Your wife's been successful. You guys are at a certain stage where you're like, okay, we can just put some money to work. I need to get 10 houses a year and I need to be cash flowing this much per house. I want to be like set up myself up so that in 10 years, this is what it looks like. And so it's just, again, interesting to see the different paths that people are looking at. But for you, if you know somebody, if you have friends that are looking at together, it sounds like they're syndicating a deal to buy these 200 unit complexes. You might just have that conversation. And if you want to have it with me offline, happy to have that conversation too. Just, I think in the first 5 episodes, I go through and there's 50 questions you can ask a syndicator. Things to know about a deal, but it may be not the only option, right? Don't just do one. But if you're buying a house and then you've got extra 50,000 just sitting around, you may be able to put it into one of these syndication deals. If you like the person that's putting it together, you like the property, you like the asset. And that's just another way to diversify a little bit. Typically like a 5-year time horizon on those things, but you're looking to double your money. That's the premise, double your money in 5 years. And that's what you're looking to do.
I've had some clients who've done 1031s where they have some money left over from the 1031 and they put it into one of those syndicated things because they need to get rid of it. And so you can do that with a portion of that. I know those people have done it. I've never done it. But it is interesting.
I guess negate it or don't not think about it. It's one of those things that just cursory look at it may give you I want to try this, or no, I don't. It's not for me. Harry, covered some ground here. I appreciate you jumping on and it's great getting to know you better. I want to ask you a few things not related to business and we'll wrap it up and we'll go from there. So what's your favorite pastime? I think I may know from looking and talking to you. I'm not related to business.
Sailing. It's my addiction.
On your screen on LinkedIn, you've got these compass sails. So is that something you put together or is that the company has that?
The sails on the sailboat?
Yeah.
Yeah, Photoshop did that.
Nice. My man. That's very cool. Okay. I didn't know if you had a company boat that you guys took out and raced around or not.
No, in my amateur sailing world, taking money, sponsors and whatnot, there's classifications of sailors. And if you take money, you end up becoming a professional sailor. And then there's like an R class of boats, a J105. I could be a professional sailor on the boat, but everybody else can't. And it's a long story, but I have other friends who have put logos on their sails before and have gotten free sails for putting a company logo on it. You're getting on the edge of professional sailing.
What's your favorite sailing event?
That's hard to say. I like class races. So one where everyone has the same boat, one design, they call it in our sailing world. So one design sailing, because then you don't have to grovel about the ratings and, they have a good rating, I have a bad rating. You have the same boat. But I also like distance racing where it's more navigational races versus. So class races tend to be, you go around buoys like this, windward lewards, and boats are really close together and it's very exciting. And we're doing Block Island Race Week and I think there's like 30 J105 signed up for it. So there'll be 30 of the same exact boat on the line all at once. And they're 35 feet, so they're not little tiny boats. So it'll be exciting. We like that. But we like to do races where you go from one place to another. And my other passions are cooking. I love to cook. I used to work in restaurants, not just one, but a long time ago, in my teenage years and into college. And I cooked tableside at one restaurant. I like cooking and I'm a pilot. So
I saw that too. Yeah.
But I'm sort of a dormant pilot right now. I mean, my license is current and I have a current medical certificate, but I haven't really been flying. There's only so many hours in the day and my free time is going towards sailing. And I like cars too. I have a few different cars.
Got your hands in some things. Yeah.
Yeah, those are my things. Those are my main things.
What's the best thing that's happened to you or your family in the last 60 days or so? Recent memory.
It's hard to say. I'm pretty lucky, I got to be honest. So I guess a lot of good things have happened. We've really just been enjoying our Florida scene. Although I'm a commuter, I go back and forth to New York, but I can't think of any sort of like one event that's happened.
So enjoying the Florida time. That's all right. So name one or two people who've been most influential in either your success or the way you think.
So in terms of because I have these two different careers that I had done, but in terms of like my photography thing and in my move into management, there's this the publisher of the newspaper up in Syracuse, this guy, Steve Rogers, was really supportive of me and paid for my MBA. And he was I would say, had a big positive effect on my career then. And also, as time went on, that MBA and all that stuff really helped me position myself in real estate. And in terms of like real estate, this guy that taught me how to sell stuff, Jerry Weinstein, was a huge early impact on me, although I haven't spoken to him in years now. And then the woman that hired me at Douglas Elliman, this woman, Karen Duncan, she really believed in me and thought I would make a great broker. And when I was really just starting out, I'd only been in the business for a few months when she brought me over to Douglas Elliman. And I think she had a big impact on my real estate career, really supportive of my move into brokerage, and could see the potential in my talent for dealing with people and my gift of gab, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, Harry. Again, it's been great having you on and chat with you, getting to know you more and hearing your journey, your story, and talking investments. So catch you guys on the next episode.
Surprisingly, most of the agents we speak with got into real estate hoping to gain passive income and become work optional. However, only 1 in 5 ever start investing. Most are simply too afraid to start. Once you get educated by listening to this show, you'll be able to overcome that fear and become the 1 in 5 who are finding financial freedom. Don't miss a single episode. If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. And we'll catch you on the next episode.